There's a very popular story in Vedanta. It is called the story of the missing necklace. So what happens is a person wakes up and realizes that they lost their necklace. A very valuable necklace which was gifted to them by someone, very costly necklace also. So they're trying to frantically look for it. They're not able to find it no matter how hard they try. They are anxious. They scold their family members saying you all probably misplaced it somewhere. Then they suspect the maid because she is the only one who could have possibly taken it, and she said this is looking very nice, so probably she has taken it. After all of this that they do, finally they ask someone, have you seen my necklace? And that person laughs and says, it's on your neck. Then they touch their neck and they realize the necklace was hanging on their neck all along. So what is the problem? There is nothing to be attained. The necklace is already on your neck. You are just not aware of it. You are ignorant of the fact that the necklace is already here. The anxiety is real. The frustration is real. All the negative emotions are real. And when you find it, there's a happiness. That is also real. But it was all just a drama. Because the necklace was never lost, the necklace was never found. As though it was lost, there was sorrow, and as though it was found, there was happiness. So when you're in samsara, when you're going through your life, as though you lost happiness, you are going through all these emotions. And when you come to this truth, as though you have rediscovered it, there is a joy. But the truth is, it was always there. It was on your neck all along. It was never lost. It can never be lost because that is your real nature. Acharya says in Atma Bodha, it's intrinsic, like fire is, heat is to fire. Can you ever separate heat and fire? How will it look if fire goes looking for heat? Or how will it look if the sun goes looking for light? That is exactly how it looks when you, who are that Parabrahma Chaitanya, you are that Supreme Brahman itself, who is of the nature of existence, consciousness and bliss. Bliss itself is looking for bliss. Like Ramana Maharshi said, it is as though the Ganga herself is saying she is thirsty. And to come out of this ignorance, what do we need? We need the truth. When the problem is ignorance, the solution is the truth. Now with this necklace example, the person didn't have to buy a new necklace for them. The person didn't go under the sofa and find their necklace. The person didn't console them saying, it's okay, it's just a necklace, don't worry. The person just pointed out the truth to them. That's why the Upanishad says, Satyameva jayate nanritam satyena pantha vitato devayana. This is the phrase that is on the Indian national emblem. Satyameva jayate. It comes from the Mundaka Upanishad. The Upanishad says, the truth alone triumphs. Triumphs in what? In giving you the lasting fulfillment that you're looking for. Na anritam. None of this false samsara can ever give you the happiness that you're looking for. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. And it is with truth that this path to the Lord has been laid. The path to liberation is the truth. The liberation is also truth. The goal is also truth. The path is also truth. So this truth is what we need. This truth is what is expressed in the Vedas. This truth is what is expressed in the Upanishads. This truth is what is there in the Puranas. This is what is there in Ramayanam. This is what is there in Bhagavatam. It is this truth and this truth alone. The ultimate truth on how to transcend suffering and attain bliss. Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa. Vedanta says, complete cessation of all your sorrows and attainment of ultimate bliss. Initially it was in the Vedas, which are the revelations, the rishis. We say rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. The rishis had a direct vision of these mantras. That is, these are the spiritual realizations of the rishis. This is not something that needs to be invented. It is something that the rishis discovered because it was always there. But the Vedas directly are very difficult to understand. Even if you know Sanskrit, you cannot directly understand the Vedas very easily because the language is very poetical, it's very complicated. And to understand the Vedas, you also have to study it along with the Vedangas. Right now, Vyasa Maharishi has blessed us by splitting it into 4 Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharvana Veda. But initially, the Vedas was just one body of literature. And it has to be studied along with the 6 Vedangas, you have to understand grammar, you have to understand astronomy, you have to understand the etymology of words, you have to understand poetical meters. All of this you have to understand, only then you can fully understand the Vedas. And because that is so difficult, what happened? As time progressed, different sages gave us the same Vedic teachings in a different manner. For example, when we speak about the Ramayanam, there's a shloka which says, Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dasharathatmaje Vedav Prachedasadasi Sakshat Ramayanatmana. When that Parabrahma, when that ultimate reality appeared as Rama, the Vedas themselves incarnated as Ramayana. The shloka says Ramayana is not something that was written by Valmiki Maharshi, it was an incarnation of the Vedas. Just like Bhagavan, through Dasharatha and Kausalya Devi, he incarnated as Rama. The Vedas, through Valmiki Maharshi, incarnated as Ramayana. Similarly, the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is the same truth, the same Vedic truth expressed in a way that we will understand. The 18 Puranas, it is the same Vedic truth, the same Upanishadic truth that is expressed through divine stories so that we can connect to it. Then time passed even further. People's attention span started shrinking. Today we think that people are talking about attention span and how these YouTube shorts and reels and all of this are shrinking our attention spans. But the Puranas already talk about this. Bhagavatam says, Mandaha Sumandamatayaha. Bhagavatam says the people born in Kali Yuga will be very dull-headed. And we can see that happening. In the last 100 years, we have seen how much the attention span of a human being has come down and how rapidly it is coming down. All of you probably belong to a very elite category of people who can sit for 1 hour and focus on one thing. This is provided that you have not fallen asleep halfway or that you have not got up and gone to do some other work. If you are able to sit and focus on what I'm saying for 1.5 hours, you are actually, you belong to a very elite category. There are children who cannot focus on something for 5 minutes at a time. There are children who cannot focus on a point or a certain topic for 10 minutes at a time. That is how bad the attention span has become. So now the attention span has dwindled to this extent, and you tell people you read the whole of Ramayana, who will read it? 24,000 shlokas. Mahabharatam, 1 lakh shlokas. We are barely able to memorize 10-11 shlokas. Where will we read Mahabharatam, which has 1 lakh shlokas? Bhagavatam has 18,000. Shiva Puranam, 24,000. Skanda Puranam, another 1 lakh. So, even though the rishis made it accessible to us through the Itihasas and Puranas, in Kali Yuga, we got to the point where our attention span is so bad, we are not even able to sit and read the Ramayana fully. We are not even able to sit and read the Mahabharata fully. Forget the Vedas. That also we have only managed to save a very small percentage. For example, the Samaveda is said to have 1,000 shakas. Shakas means branches. And right now only 3 main shakas are surviving. So what we have as Vedic literature today itself is very minimal. That itself we are not able to understand. It is made simpler through stories in the Puranas and Itihasas. That also we are not able to understand. We don't have the dharana shakti. We don't have the power to sit and focus on something for extended periods of time. So what do? This is where, out of compassion, Vidyaranya Swami says, Ajnanantargahana patitane atmavidyopodeshaihi tratum lokan bhavadavashikha tapapapachyamanan muktva maunam vatavitapino mulato nishpatanti shambhor murtischarati bhuvane Shankaracharya Rupa. In order to save us who are suffering in samsara because of this ignorance, he says, we are tormented by the forest fire called ignorance. We are being cooked in the forest fire called ignorance. So how to protect us? Atmavidyopadeshaihi tratam. To protect us by giving us the Atmavidya Upadesha, by giving us the true knowledge that a person requires to attain peace and fulfillment in life. Who came down? He says, Muktva maunam vatavitapino mulato nishpatanti. That Dakshinamurti who sat silently under the banyan tree and he did his Upadesha. He sat under that Vatavriksha and he gave his Upadesha to the four Brahma Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar. That very teacher, primordial teacher, he realized that there is no point in waiting any longer. Because until the time of the Jagat Guru, if you see, it is always the student who goes in search of the teacher. If you see all the Puranas, all the Itihasas, what happens? The Rishi or the Guru is in a cave or is in an ashram in the forest. The student goes looking for him. But we all became such bad students that if left by ourselves, we will never even think about going to the Guru. That was the state in which Kali Yuga was. So that primordial teacher decided, out of compassion, that I will not wait for my students to come looking for me. I will get off my seat and I will go in search of them in order to save them from this samsara. One Swami always says, Dakshinamurti is like the Himalayas, but Shankaracharya is like the Ganga. It is the same Himalayas that is melting and flowing down as the Ganga. Right? If you think about it, the Himalayas and Ganga are not separate from each other. It is the Himalayan snow that is melting and flowing down as the river Ganga. But think about it, how many people can climb the Himalayas and how many people can do Ganga Snana? The very few, the very fit and very ambitious and adventurous people are the ones who can climb Mount Everest or any of the Himalayan peaks. But almost anyone and everyone can go and do Ganga Snana because it is so accessible to us. So to go and reach the level of Dakshinamurti is not very easy. You have to be so qualified, you have to be so mature that in his presence, that silence itself speaks. But we are nowhere close to those qualifications. So that Guru decided to flow down like the Ganga and uplift everyone even at the lowest levels. Even at the lowest of the low levels, the Ganga flows. So that the people who are suffering in ignorance can uplift themselves. And this is the story of Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya. Generally, when we take a subject like this, life and teachings of Adi Shankaracharya, we've also had regular classes. Typically, it takes anywhere between 45 to 50 hours just to even get a basic understanding of the Jagadguru's life and teachings. And this is just a very superficial understanding. And now we only have 2 days. So in this time, we can probably try to touch the tip of the iceberg. Just a little, just enough to convince you that you need to go read Shankara Vijayam and that you need to go and read all the works of Shankaracharya. This is just the trailer. For a 2.5 hour movie, you have a 5-minute trailer at best. So these 2 hours or these 2 days will just be the trailer to what is in store for you. Basically, it's a lifelong journey of attaining peace. So where does the story start? There is a very learned Vedic scholar by the name of Vidyadhiraja. And he has a son by the name Shiva Guru. Now the Shiva Guru is an exceptional student. He's a brahmachari who's studying in a Gurukula, and he's an exceptionally intelligent student. And in the Shankara Vijayam, there is an entire sarga which talks about the greatness of Shiva Guru. He completes his Vedic education and he's very intelligent, he's a very devout student. In fact, in one shloka, Vidyaranya Swami says, Sabbrahmachari Guru Gehavasi Tatkadyakari Vihitanna Bhoji Sajam Prabhatam Chahutasha Sevi Vratena Vedam Nijamadya Gishta. How was he? Brahmachari. He was a brahmachari. Generally, we have twisted the meaning of the word brahmachari to mean an unmarried boy, but that's not the case. Brahmachari means he who is in pursuit of the ultimate. Brahman is that ultimate reality. And the word chara means to move. Charati means he's walking. So who is a brahmachari? He is the one who is walking on the path of enlightenment. who has enlightenment as his goal, who has this ultimate Upanishadic realization as his goal, and he's walking on that path. A person who is simply attending school or college is not a brahmachari just because he is not married. A true brahmachari is someone who is pursuing enlightenment. And if you're pursuing enlightenment, whichever stage of life you are in, internally you're a brahmachari. Externally you might be a grihastha, you might be a vanaprastha or a sannyasi. But if you're pursuing enlightenment, internally you're a brahmachari. And he says, Guru Gehavasi. He is staying with his teacher. For us, what is that? That is only satsanga. To stay in the company of sadhus and to participate in satsangas like this is only our Gurukula Vasa. Because we have decided enlightenment is our goal. So what do we do now? We spend time with people who are of the same nature. Because that's the greatest life hack that anyone can teach you. Bhagavan says in Bhagavatam, this is the greatest spiritual secret. He says to Uddhava, Sugopyam api vakshyami tvamme bhritya suhrit saka. Because you are my best friend, because you are very devoted to me, because you are my well-wisher and because you are a servant to me, because I'm so fond of you. He tells Uddhava, you are my favorite person on earth. He makes Uddhava guess. He asks Uddhava, do you know who is my favorite? First he says, is it Brahma? And Krishna says, no. Is it Parameshwara? Krishna says, I love both of them, but there's someone who's even more favorite to me. And he asks, is it your brother Sankarsana, Balarama? Krishna says, no. And he asks, is it your wife Mahalakshmi? He says, no. Then who is it? Krishna says, it is you, Uddhava, because you are a Bhagavata. Not just because you are my best friend. It is because you are a Parama Bhagavata. You are a pure soul devotee. Nirapeksham munim shantam nirvairam samadarshanam anuvrajam yaham nityam puyeyet yangri renubi. In that situation, Krishna says, when someone who is free of desires, a very calm and peaceful person, a sadhu who is free of desires, I will always walk behind him. Why is Bhagavan saying this? Is it to protect the sadhu? No. Bhagavan says, so that I can pick up the dust of this devotee's feet and purify myself. Who Bhagavan is saying. While speaking about Bhagavan, we say, Pavitranam Pavitram Yo. He who is the purest of the pure. And he is saying, you know what is the secret to my purity? I walk behind devotees and I take the dust of their feet and put it on my head. In another place in Bhagavatam it says, no matter what tapas you do, no matter what japa you do, anushtana you do, whatever you do, without this one thing, enlightenment is not possible. And what is that? Vina mahatpada rajobhisheka. Without, it says, take the dust of a sadhu's feet and take a bath in that. Do abhisheka of that. But somehow stay connected to a sadhu. Somehow be in satsanga. It's the easiest way and the fastest way to liberation. That was the whole point of Gurukula Vasa. It is that you are constantly absorbing from the teacher instead of just learning. You're not just learning, lessons. You are watching how the Guru leads his life and you're absorbing the ethics and the morals and the values. One, I think, French philosopher said, the greatest failure of the education system is the fact that teachers have been reduced to just someone who teaches you intellectual facts. He says this is the greatest failure of the modern education system. Because if a teacher is not able to give you values and ethics and morals, all your intellectual knowledge will go for a toss. Because intellectuals have created more problems on earth than anyone else. The person who invented the nuclear bomb is intelligent. The people who have done the biggest financial scams are intelligent. The people who caused the 2008 crash are very intelligent. Ravana is exceptionally intelligent. Ravana was a Vedic scholar. He was a master Veena player. To this day, if a man plays the Veena very well, as a compliment, they will say he plays like Ravana. It is a compliment in the music world. That if a man plays the Veena very well, the greatest compliment you can give him is compare him to Ravana. He's a very good administrator. All of that is there. Intelligence is there. What is the point? Everything went for a toss. Duryodhana was very intelligent. Kamsa was very intelligent. Everyone was intelligent. So with just facts, you're not going to get anywhere in life. In fact, you will do more damage than someone without facts. At least a person without values, if he's not very intelligent, the damage he can do to the world is very little. But you have a person with intelligence and no ethics, that's a deadly combination. That is why Gurukula Vasa was required. That is why Satsanga is required. Because you don't just learn don't just learn facts and go home. You absorb their ethics and morals and their way of life. Tat karyakari. What did he do? Throughout the day, he was very busy doing what the Guru asked him to do. Because for a student, one of his primary duties is Guru Seva, Shushrusha Brahmacharina. To serve the Guru is one of the primary duties of the disciple. But now what have we done? We have turned teachers into the service provider. Now the student is giving orders. The student says, I have paid a fee and I demand services, and the teacher has become the service provider. So naturally you are going to raise a generation of arrogant people. That is exactly what is going to happen. But the Vedic system says you have to serve the teacher. So the teacher is not a service provider to you. Vihitanna bhoji. Whatever he gets, he is happy with it. He eats whatever he gets from bhiksha. Sayam prabhatam cha hutasha sevi. Morning and evening he performs what is called Agni Karya. In the Vedic tradition, the worship of Agni is of great significance. In fact, when we look at the Vedic times, the primary deity was Agni. All the yagas, yajnas, everything happened with Agni. Even now, weddings happen with Agni Sakshi only. In Sanatana Dharma, the worship of Agni is fundamental. But we have taken it out of our daily practice and made one small practice where we are maintaining this, which is lighting the lamp. Instead of those elaborate yagas and yajnas that we used to perform, we have brought it down. We have given discount. We have applied Kali Yuga discounting factor, and we have brought it down to just lighting the lamp in the morning and evening. This also people are lazy to do. If that also you cannot do, I'm sorry, you should not be calling yourself a follower of Sanatana Dharma. If this basic Agni worship of lighting a lamp in the morning and evening you're struggling to do, then I am seriously questioning your life's choices. But ideally speaking, brahmacharis should be performing something called Samidadana, and married people should be performing something called Agnihotra. And the brahmachari version is very simple. It takes only 10 minutes. The grihastha version is slightly more complicated. So this, after all of this, what does Vidyaranya Swami say? Vratena Vedam Nijamadhyagishta. So when you have come here to learn about Sanatana Dharma, it is not enough if you are just curious. This vrata has to be there. How are you living your life? If after listening to this, the way you live your life does not change, then there is no purpose of you coming here. If you were the exact same person before you came to Satsanga, and you are the exact same person after listening to all of this, it means that you have not digested this. You have just taken everything from this year and let it out through the other year. When will you know that this knowledge is beginning to work? It is only when it changes the way that you live. It's very easy to come and sit and listen for 1.5 hours. Actually, that itself not a lot of people do. So, but that is just the beginning. That's like taking admission in the school. But after that, you have a lot of work till you get your final degree. So, when you have come to Satsanga, what have you done? You have just taken admission, that's all. Only the first step is done. After this, there's a lot of work left to do, and it has to be done constantly. On day one, you cannot be perfect at everything. Now, the ideal Vedic life that I speak about and the life that you are living right now, there will be a huge gap, including myself. There are a lot of things. I have been trying to change my life from many years. I've been successful in a lot of respects. There are still a lot of places where I feel there is loads and loads of room for improvement. But my Guru always says, today you can change one small thing about your life. Do that today. Don't wait till you say, okay, let me make all these changes, let me retire and then start. Or a lot of people have this convenient excuse, can we follow everything that is there in the Shastras? So I'll just flip the situation on you. If your child comes and tells you, I'm not going to write this exam because no matter what I do, I can't score 100 on 100. What will be your advice be to them? So what if you can't score 100? Just go attempt the exam. If not 100, you'll get a 90. If not 90, you'll get an 80. And so you read the Shastras, your attitude shouldn't be, how can one person possibly follow all of this, so let me not follow anything. That is not the right attitude. The right attitude should be, 100 things are there. Out of this, even if you can do 2, it's still better than 0. Bhagavan says in the Gita, Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a little bit of this dharma can save you from great disasters. So this vrata is important. Otherwise, you can listen to all the Vedanta, you can read all the Prakarana Granthas, you can read all the commentaries, you can read all the Bhakti literature, you can read the life of saints. All of that will not work until you put your life in order. But the beauty is, reading this itself will inspire you to put your life in order. So this has to go hand in hand. You shouldn't say, first I'll finish studying, then I'll start applying. Nor should you say, let me first apply everything, then I'll start studying. Either way, it's a loss. Study, apply. This has to go hand in hand. And that is how Shiva Guru was. Now, on the other hand, you have Aryamba Devi, who is also extremely learned, extremely pious woman. And my Guru always says, everyone wants their child to be Shankaracharya, but no one wants to be like Shiva Guru or Aryamba Devi. After every satsang common complaint, everyone, at least 3 people will come and say this, how to get our children interested in this. And I always ask them the same question. Forget your children for a minute. Let's look at your grandparents. You look at the life of your grandparents and look at 2 parameters. How much of the Shastra did they know? How much of the Shastra did they follow? How much did they know and how much did they adhere to? Compared to your grandparents, are you better or are you at the same level or are you inferior? Now, if you are not able to follow the Shastras as strictly as your grandparents, or you don't know as much, you don't have the same knowledge that your grandparents had, it is impossible, it is unrealistic for you to expect your children or your grandchildren to have the same knowledge as you. Because you are the one who started this discounting. Your grandparents and your parents followed so much. You have cut it down to 50%. It is not surprising if your son cuts it down to 25% and your grandson cuts it down to 12.5%. So if you really want your children to be like that, you have to at least aspire to know more Shastras and follow more of this compared to your parents and grandparents. That is what a parampara is. The word parampara, it gets its meaning from the fact that it is always one step higher. It should be, then every generation is jumping one step higher than the next. But if you yourself are a watered down version of what the culture and the tradition that your grandparents followed, your children, grandchildren will be a watered down version of you. Then you can't come and complain and say, my children are not following, because your grandparents say the same about you. So this is why it is very important to understand the life of Shiva Guru and Aryamba Devi. That is why in such detail it is given in Shankara Vijay. And if you are like this, the truth is, even in the Puranas we see examples like this. 1 or 2 generations in between, even if they go little off path, somewhere suddenly one Prahlada will come and manifest in your family. For example, if you see, there is a story in Bhagavatam of a Raja called Anga. Anga Raja, he is a Raja Rishi, he is considered a Jnani, but he is doing his duty of maintaining the kingdom. But his son was so troublesome that the father, the king of the entire kingdom, and his father could not put up with him anymore, and he ran away from the kingdom and took Sanyasa. Imagine, he has tortured his father so much that the father left his house and ran away. And after he became the king, what is the first thing he did? The first rule that he passed is, from today all pujas, yagas and yajnas are banned. Nobody should do any more puja in this kingdom. This is the first rule he passed. Who is he? He is the son of a Raja Rishi. How is this possible? Sometimes it happens. But then what happened? The Rishis got really angry at him. They tried to advise him. They tried to reason with him. He didn't listen. They gave a shapa and he was reduced to ashes. Not reduced to ashes, he fell dead. Then what the Rishis did is, it's very interesting. It is said that they churned his body. I don't know what kind of DNA technology or genetic engineering they did, but they somehow churned something from his body and they created a new being. That being was Pruthu Maharaja, who is considered a manifestation or an avatar of Narayana himself. And it was because of him that the world came to be known as Prithvi. He was such a great ruler that because of him, the place that he ruled over came to be known as Prithvi. That's why the earth, another name is Prithvi, because of Pruthu Maharaja. So you see, if the jnanam is real, if the tapas is real, even if one generation in between something like this happens, the next generation immediately comes back into this Vaidika dharma. The next generation immediately comes back to the right path. But if the tapas is not real, then it is going to get watered down and it is going to go, and there is nothing that you can do about it. Even in Prahlada's case, if you see, his son Virochana was the person who misunderstood the Vedas and he came up with a Asuric philosophy. Hiranyakashipu was an atheist who was completely against all of this. If you look at their family, you get Kashyapa Prajapati, who is a rishi. Then you have Hiranyakashipu, his mother Diti. Also, his birth itself was it's a long story. We'll skip that for now. Kashyapa Prajapati is a rishi. Then you have Hiranyakashipu, who is an atheist. Then you have Prahlada, who is a great devotee. Then next generation is Virochana. Again, he went to Brahma to learn about this truth. He misunderstood it, and his misunderstanding is what is called the Asura Siddhanta. It is this wrong idea that we are the body, and to keep this body happy and to give it all pleasures, that is the purpose of life. This is Asura Siddhanta, which came from Virochana's misunderstanding of the Vedas. Then next Virochana's son, you have Bali Chakravarti. When Vamana Murthy came to his Yajnashala, Shukracharya warned him and says, whatever he asks, don't give, because he is Vishnu, he'll cheat you. He's innocently asking for 3 steps of land, but he has a bigger plan. He's Mahavishnu, don't trust him. Bali Chakravarti says, all this homa we are doing for it to go to Vishnu only, no? If that Vishnu himself is coming and asking me for something, even if he asks myself, I will be ready to give. So in any sampradaya, in any lineage, you will always see this back and forth, where 1 or 2 generations in between will go off the path and come back. But if the tapas is true, the effort is not wasted. But if that tapas is not there, no matter what technique you use, no matter how you convey it, your children will not follow. There's that famous story of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, where a mother brought her child and she said, he's eating too many sweets. Can you get him to stop eating sweets? And Thakur said, come back after a month and I'll do something. This poor lady brought the child back after a month, and Thakur just looked at the child and said, listen, from today you should not eat sweets. It's not good for you, you should not eat. And that poor mother was exasperated. She said, Maharaj, you could have done this 1 month back. Why did you make me wait for 1 month? And he said, it's because all these days I myself was eating many sweets. So for 1 month I stopped eating sweets so that tapas shakti builds within me. And now when I tell him not to eat, it will work. But without me following this, simply to show off, if I say I'm a big mystic, I'm a sadhu, if I can reform this child, it will not work. So first you should practice what you preach. Only then what you preach will work. Otherwise you can be the most intelligent person, you can be the most skilled teacher, you can be an expert in psychology, but you cannot give spirituality. Swami Vivekananda said, you think I went to give talks in America? No, I went to give spirituality. He just gave it like that. Otherwise, imagine a person with absolutely no identity there. From back then, India was just some British colony. He went and stood there, 5 words he spoke, the entire auditorium stood up. Why? It was not just those 5 words, it was the tapas behind those words. The whole of Bharata Desha, Acharya single-handedly went and reformed so many people. How was he able to do it? Now someone who is making the same mistake that person made, if you or I go and tell, they won't change. Because we don't have that kind of tapas. But when Acharya said, it was the state from which he spoke that reformed him. And where did he get this from? He got it from his parents. That is why extreme importance is given to parenting. The Upanishad says, Matriman, Pitriman, Acharyavan, Purusho Veda. For a person who is the really educated person, a person who has learnt the right values from his mother, a person who has learned the right values from his father, and the person who has learned the right values from his teacher. Only if these value systems are in place, this person becomes a saint. Otherwise, it is not possible. So, we have this very pious couple, they got married, and for many years they didn't have a child. So, what they decided to go to a Shiva temple in Thrissur, and they did puja there. So, there is a concept called bhajanam, where you stay in the temple. Bhajan here doesn't mean Nama Sankirtana. You stay in the temple, you eat the temple prasada, and you spend the entire day worshipping the deity there, helping out with the temple, serving the sadhus who come here. You stay like this for 41 days or 48 days. And on the last day, finally, when they were leaving from there, Shivaguru had a dream. And in his dream, Parameshwara himself came and asked, do you want a good son who will be very short-lived, or do you want a horrible son who will have a long life? In fact, many bad sons who will have a long life. But Shivaguru, because he is so centered in these values, how would any of us think, right, if I have many children, if one person doesn't take care of me, the other person will take care. So best to ask for as many children as possible, so that in my old age, someone will take care of me. But Shivaguru was very firm in his values. He said, I would much rather have one good sons, because those 5 or 6 bad children will be a problem to society and to me. I would much rather have one very, very pious and very intelligent son. And Parameshwara blessed the couple. What they thought is Shiva is going to bless them with a child, but little did they know that Shiva himself entered the womb of Aryamba Devi. And as she went back home, as her pregnancy progressed and they could start to see clearly that she's pregnant, there was this bright tejas. She was just glowing like the sun, is what Vidyaranya Swami says. It was something that nobody had ever seen before. It was the kind of radiance that nobody had seen before, because she is carrying Shiva himself. So the kind of radiance that came, everyone knew that this child who is going to be born is going to be a very divine being. And in the day came, Vaishakha Masa, Shukla Panchami, Shivaguru was sitting and doing Shiva Puja, and at that exact moment when he was chanting the Rudra Prashna, and in the Rudra Prashna, in the 8th Anuvaka, there is a Nama, Namah Shankaraya. As he was chanting that and doing Abhisheka to Parameshwara, this child was born. Therefore, they decided to name him Shankara. And the beauty is that the word Shankara itself reveals Acharya's date of birth. So there is a system of encoding called Katapayadi Sankhya. If you just have to count the number of letters that come. Sha is Ya, Ra, La, Va, Sha. It is the 5th letter. Then you have Ka. Ka is first letter. Then you have Ra. Ya, Ra, Ra is the 2nd letter. And in Katapayadi, you have to put it in reverse. So the number that you get when you decode Shankara as per Katapayadi Sankhya is 215. So it is the 2nd month, 1st Paksha, 5th day. Vaishakha Masa, Shukla Pancham. That is the date of Tithi of Acharya's birth. So in the name Shankara itself, his Janma Tithi, Avatara Tithi is encoded. Because he was a manifestation of Shiva himself, also he is called Shankara. Because he was born when Shivaguru was reciting that particular Nama, he was called Shankara. Because he was born because of the blessings of Vadakkanadar, that is the name of the Kovil the temple that they went to. It is in Thrissur. It used to be called Vidaba Kundrinathan. In colloquially, it came to be known as Vadakkanadar. It is Vrishabhachaleshwara. Shiva is who is sitting on top of the Rishabha. And the beauty of that temple is you can still see it. To this day, the temple exists. They do Abhisheka on the Shivalinga with ghee and coconut water. but the ghee never melts. In that Kerala heat, inside the Garbhagriha, the ghee never melts. It is just sitting on top of the Shivalinga like a mountain. To this day, you can go see it. It's in Thrissur. In fact, the name Thrissur, which is the name of the district itself, comes from Trishiva Perur. It is the place where Shiva resides. And the central circle of that town is this Vadakkanatha temple. So in that city, if you have to go from one side to the other side of the city, you have to do a pradakshina around this temple and only go. So because he was born due to the blessings of that Shiva, he came to be known as Shankara. And as he was growing, he showed extraordinary capabilities. The things that children would take a very long time to understand, he would be able to grasp it very quickly. At the age of 1, he was speaking very fluently. At the age of 2, he had started reading all the kavyas. At the age of 3, he started reading all the Puranas. It was very clear from the start that this is a being with a remarkable intellect. There are some people, we call them ekasantagrahi. That is, if you say something, they can just repeat it back to you immediately if they listen to it once. So someone with that kind of capability, if they sit and listen to this full satsanga, as soon as I'm done speaking, everything that I said word by word, they can repeat it back to me. That is who we would call an ekasantagrahi. Acharya was like that. He just reads something once and it is registered in his memory forever. And he was growing up to be such a promising young child. But unfortunately, during this time, Shiva Guru passed away. So his father passed away when he was very young. Some versions say that before his Upanayana, the father passed away. Some versions say it was after the Upanayana. But it is commonly understood that while Acharya was a very, very little boy, his father passed away and his mother was the one who raised him. At the age of 5, his Upanayana Samskara was done and he was sent to the Gurukula. But we know that he is an ekasantagrahi. He listens to it once, it is registered in his mind. So how long did it take for him to finish learning all the Vedas? However long it takes to sit and chant all of them once. Because why does it take so long to learn the Vedas? Because you have to repeat it 100 times before it sits in our memory. There are some calculations used in Veda Pathashalas. Looking at the book, you have to repeat it 3-4 times. Then while others are looking at the book and chanting, you have to keep saying it, that you have to do 11 times. Then without looking at the book, you have to do 32 times. There are, this is what is prescribed in Pathashalas today. And sometimes they will not give you the start of the mantra. How they'll test you is, they will give you a phrase and they will say start from the 10th word after this phrase. And you have to tell. That is how rigorously you are tested in a Pathashala. It is not simply learn a few mantras and leave. You are tested. You have to recite the mantras forward. Then there is something called krama. You have to, let's say there are 5 words. You have to recite 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, like this you have to go. This is krama. Then there is something called jata. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2. Then 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3. Like this you have to recite. So you have to know the Vedas forward and backwards. Then there is something called Gana. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Then there is Dandakrama Parayana. It goes like this. So you should imagine, you take any shloka, simple shloka that you know, you have to recite it forward and backwards. And the grammar has to be correct. Because Sanskrit grammar, when 2 words are joining, when it's going in this order, it behaves differently, and it's going in this order, it behaves differently. So this is how rigorous it is. But Acharya, he hears everything once his education is done. So very soon, in that same year, he finished studying the 4 Vedas and the Vedangas also, the Angas, the 6 supporting subjects that you study to understand the Vedas better. Then what did the teacher do? Now the teacher doesn't have anything left to teach him. The teacher, everything that he knows, he has taught it to him. He has nothing left to teach. So he asks him to start teaching his classmates. He says, you be my assistant. You start teaching your classmates. And while this is happening, one day he goes out for bhiksha. And he goes to the house of a lady who is very poor, extremely poor. In those days, people didn't care how poor they were. What they were firm about is they have to not leave this dharma. What do we say? In fact, if you are very interested in Vedanta at a young age, there is one group which will say, oh, it's so amazing that you're like this. Then there is another group that will come and tell you, if you're like this, you won't be able to survive in this world. If you're like this, you won't earn any money. Nobody will be willing to marry you. All of these comments you will hear. It's very normal and natural that people wonder why youngsters don't come to satsanga. As a youngster who has come to satsanga, only that those people will know how many people discourage them. Most parents are like our Acharya Sri Sannidhanam says, everyone wants Vedic scholars, but where? The boy next door should be a Vedic scholar, the boy in the next street should be a Vedic scholar. Someone's daughter should learn Bharatanatyam and protect Indian culture. Someone's son should go to the army and protect the country. We will simply say, I respect soldiers, I respect Vedic scholars, I respect people who protect this culture, but my son should work in an IT company. This is how we are. And it is this exact kind of selfishness that has led to the decline of this culture. Because everyone wants the child in the next house to protect culture, to protect the country. See, if you look at it, the three fundamental professions which are very important to any country, we saw Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Vakya, Matraman, Pitraman, Acharyavan, Purusho Veda. So like that, at the level of the country, these three roles are there. The mother's role is represented by the farmer, because without the farmer, nobody can eat. The father's role is represented by a soldier, because he is the protector. The teacher's role is a teacher itself. So if farmers, soldiers and teachers are not there, the country collapses in one day. But how many people would be happy with their child becoming a farmer, soldier or a teacher? No parent wants their child to become a soldier. No parent wants their child to become a teacher. No parent wants their child to become a farmer. But we want all of these professions to exist so that someone else can do all the hard work and we can sit and reap the benefits of it. This is how most people think. But the Vedic culture is, even if you are inconvenienced, it's okay. You do what is good for society. You stay steadfast in your dharma regardless of what the consequences are. If by being culturally oriented, you won't have friends, I don't want such friends. If because I'm regular to satsanga and because I don't eat in hotels or I don't go watch movies, nobody will marry me, I don't want to get married. You can take all those marriage invitations, burn it for all I care. But I am not interested in the kind of life that comes at the compromise of this dharma. If this conviction we don't have and we say, no, but society is like this, society is like that, you are not strong enough to call yourself a Sanatani. You don't have the strength that the rishis had, you don't have the strength that the sadhus had. So build that strength. That is all you can do. If you keep bending to society, like I said earlier, andhenaiva niyamana yathandaha, they will take you in their procession and at the end of the road, they will also be unhappy, you will also be unhappy. You don't have to go hurt anyone, you don't have to go change anyone, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to be a revolutionary. None of that is expected from you. In your own life, you follow this. If you are true to it, you will attain happiness. And without following it, no matter how much you speak about it, it is not useful. So this lady and this couple whose house Shankaracharya visited, they were very poor, but they were not willing to, when people are in such a desperate situation, they'll be willing to steal, they'll be willing to, let's do some other profession. But that household, they were very clear. Our life is dedicated to the preservation of the Vedas, and how much ever money we get from that, we will survive with that, even if it means starving. That is the conviction with which they were living. And when this radiant young brahmachari went there, the mother, she felt very bad, not because they have nothing to eat. That doesn't matter to her, because her values are very strong. She is more worried that such a radiant young boy has come and she has nothing to offer him. That is what she feels bad about. Not the fact that they are poor, or not the fact that because her husband is a Vedic scholar, he doesn't earn much. She's just worried that this boy has come to my doorstep and I have nothing to give him. But still she goes and looks all around her house and she finds one dried amalaka, one dried piece of gooseberry. So she picks it up, puts it in his bhiksha patra and his plate and says, "My dear child, this is all I have." And when this happened, Acharya was filled with compassion and he took the matter straight to the authorities. He went directly to Lakshmi Devi and he said, "How can you do this? Such a noble woman," and I'm assuming, I have not met her husband, but I'm assuming he's of the same nobility. How can you not bless them with money? After all, isn't it the money that good people have through which good things happen in the world? If good people don't have money, then how will good things happen in the world? So he directly approaches Mahalakshmi. And that is where he sings that beautiful stotra, the Kanakadharastava. Angam Harev Puraka Bhushanam Ashrayanti, he starts. And it is just an outpouring of Acharya's ecstasy. That is the first Bhakti Stotra that it's wrong to say he composed it. Any of his works, it's very wrong to say he composed it, because to compose, you have to sit, you have to think and write. This was just spontaneous. It just flows out like a torrent. So he appealed directly to Mahalakshmi. And she said, "See, I understand they're very noble, very good people in this Janma, yes. But in the previous Janma, in their previous life, they were very rich people who did not do any donation. They did not give any money to the poor people. They were selfish and they kept all their money to themselves. So this is the punishment in this life." Then Acharya says, all of that is fine, but there is a rule in karma. What you're saying, the law of karma, perfect, I understand. But there is a rule that if someone does an extremely good act, extremely good deed, it fructifies immediately. Otherwise, there's a delayed effect. Generally, we see in the world, we have this question, people who are cheating others, people who are doing fraud, they are all happy. And I am a straight, upright, moral person and I am suffering in life. Why is this? It's because of the actions of your past. In your past, you have done some bad deeds which are fructifying now. Their past, they have done some good deeds which are fructifying now. But this will not continue. At a certain point, the good deeds that you do will start to fructify and the bad deeds that they are doing now will start to fructify. Then you will have the last laugh. But when you look at it right now, sometimes it feels unfair. What did I get by being such a good person? In my office, all the people who do politics and those who gossip and those who, pull each other down, they are the ones who are sitting in the top position. And I'm honest to my work, I'm honest to God, but nothing good ever happens to me. It will. You just have to wait. And why are good things happening to them? Because somewhere they have done some good deed. That is fructifying. Now, if you plant a tree now, 20 years from now, you will get fruits. So some tree that they've planted 20 years back is fructifying now. You keep planting and watering the tree, it will also fructify in due course. This is the general law. But there's an exception to this. When someone does something that is absolutely terrible or someone does something that is extremely noble, it will bear fruit instantly. Because even karma says this is such an extreme case that I can't wait for 20 years for this to fructify. I will make it happen right away. So Acharya argues with Mahalakshmi and says, this is such a noble act where she doesn't have anything for herself and she is given. When we have enough for ourselves and we give, that is still good. But that is not the highest kind of dana. Worst is you have but you don't give. Better than that is you have, you see how much do I need for myself and the rest you give it. This is also very good, but this is mediocre. What is the highest? You don't even think about what you have, what you don't have, and you're willing to give. That is the highest form of sacrifice. And because they have performed this highest form of sacrifice, she must be rewarded immediately. And as soon as he said this, Mahalakshmi also accepted his argument and immediately there was a shower of golden gooseberries. Because Mahalakshmi Devi also felt that his argument is correct, and because she has done such a noble deed, she blessed him with a shower of golden gooseberries. And that house, that family is still there in Kerala. Recently, one Sanyasi from the Shankaracharya Sampradaya, Yadathoryamat Swamiji, he has gone there, he has met them and he has come. So that family, they have a temple dedicated to Acharya, and now they're obviously a very wealthy family. But that family still is living in Kerala, in that place where this incident happened. And it is at this juncture that Vidyaranya Swami composes a very beautiful stuti about the greatness of Acharya. He speaks about so many different elements. One of my favorites is he gives a very beautiful visual imagery. So when you look at the picture of Acharya, what is happening is he is holding a book in his hand. And he is holding a chin mudra like this. This is how the image of Acharya is. So he says it looks as though this Ved book represents the Vedas, and it became full of the thorns of misinterpretation. And what Acharya is doing is, with his chin mudra, he's plucking out the thorns of misinterpretation, and he's giving people the right interpretation of the Vedas. Because when you look at the time before Acharya's avatara, it is a very scary time. You have many groups which are rejecting the Vedas. Then there are many groups which are twisting the Vedas for their own benefit. There are practices like human sacrifice, Narabali. There are a lot of Pakhanda matas, where the practice of religion, because of people's desire and greed, it has become so violent that it has become that entire society has become absolutely chaotic. Then on the other hand, you have the materialists who are denying religion itself. You have people who are opposing the Vedas and saying all of this is outdated, it's not true, it's just a bunch of stories. And then you have these people who are misinterpreting it for their own benefit. So many tattvas were misinterpreted. For example, the tattva of Radha in Krishna, or Krishna and the Gopikas, it is a very deep tattva, philosophy, where you see Rasa Krida, Krishna is in the center, around him the Gopikas are dancing, and the imagery is usually there is one Gopika, then Krishna, one Gopika, one Krishna, Anganam Antare Madhavaha. This is the imagery of Rasa Leela. You will have one Krishna in between, then Krishna Gopika like this. What does this represent? What is in the center is the Atma, it is the Chaitanya. Who are these Gopikas? It is the thoughts that we have. Typically it is said that Krishna had 16,000 wives, and 16,000 is approximately the number of thoughts that we have in a day. So these thoughts are constantly dancing around us, and in between each one of those thoughts, that Atma is shining. The gap between two thoughts, the truth is available to you. Why are we not able to perceive that truth? It is because we are so focused on the thoughts. Patanjali Maharshi covers this in the first 4 Yoga Sutras. This is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that's the second sutra. Tadadrashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. So what is happening when you completely shut down the mind? That is, if the Gopikas disappear, who is there? Krishna alone. Bhagavan alone is there. So you can realize that Bhagavan is within your heart. But why are you not able to recognize? Because the thoughts are dancing around. So once you learn to calm down your thoughts, you will realize the truth. Otherwise, what is happening? Patanjali Maharshi uses a very beautiful word, Vritti Sarupyam. You get identified with the thoughts. You get identified with the movements of your mind. The mind, there is some emotion, we get identified with it. The mind, there is anger, we say I am angry. The mind, there is peace, we say I am peaceful. So this is where we suffer. This is the deep philosophy behind Rasa Leela. But people started misinterpreting it, saying what is the way to enlightenment? If men and women dance together, that will lead us to enlightenment. These kind of misinterpretations started coming. So many aspects of the Vaidika Dharma were being misinterpreted, and that was causing so much chaos in society. And Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekananda, he writes about this. His literal words. He speaks about all of this confusion that existed in society of that time. And he says, but India has to live. So the spirit of the Lord descended again. So what is India? It is the Sanatana Dharma. Bharata Desha and Sanatana Dharma cannot be separated from each other. He says, but India has to live. But the geographical location called India is still there. Whether people follow the Vedas, people don't follow the Vedas, that is still there. But he says, if that is gone, there is no India. In another place, Swami Vivekananda says, spirituality is the backbone of India. And if she takes to anything else, she will perish within 50 years. This is what Swami Vivekananda says. So, so what now? What to do now? India has to live. So the Spirit of the Lord descended again. He who declared, I shall descend when virtue subsides. He's talking about the Gita shloka where Bhagavan says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Bhagavan makes a promise to Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield and he says, whenever dharma begins to decline and adharma becomes powerful, I will personally incarnate on the earth and I will make sure that the sadhus, the good people are protected and the evildoers are punished, and through this dharma is re-established on earth. Because dharma is the natural order of the universe. When you see the dhatu, it says dharana poshana yoho. It can either mean to hold or it can mean to sustain, to nurture. So what is dharma or what is sanatana dharma? It is the glue that holds the universe together. It is the glue that holds society together. If this is not there, it's just utter chaos everywhere. So Swami Vivekananda says that same Bhagavan who in the middle of the battlefield promised to Arjuna, when dharma declines, I will come. It is that same Bhagavan who manifested in the south. This is the Spirit of the Lord descended again, but this time the manifestation was in the south. The marvelous Shankaracharya arose. This Vidyaranya Swami says all the confusions that were there in the Vedas, like picking out thorns, he was able to pick it out. That's why we see him like this. There was so many beautiful descriptions are given, and then Acharya eventually he returns home. He goes back to the Pathashala after this episode and eventually he returns home, and it is time to take up Sanyasa. He has decided that there is no point in me living in this world. There is no point in me continuing this pursuit of material things. I want to realize this truth. And my life has to be dedicated to the service of this Sanatana Dharma. But he asks his mother, and his mother is obviously very hesitant. In the Vedic Sampradaya, without your mother's permission, you can't become a sannyasi. Father's permission, nobody really cares about that much. Mother's permission is mandatory. Father has no option, he has to say yes. So, mother is not permitting, but why is she not permitting? A lot of people don't understand this. She is not selfish. She is speaking from the perspective of pravritti dharma. So, Acharya, this is how he introduces the Gita Bhashyam. He says, Dvivido hi vedokto dharmaha pravritti lakshano nivritti lakshanascha. There are two kinds of dharma, pravritti dharma and nivritti dharma. Pravritti dharma is what 99% of us follow. That is, we live in society, we live with our family, we have families, we have children, we have so many responsibilities in society, and we do all of this in a moral, ethical and dharmic way. This is pravritti dharma. While being a householder, while going to office, while taking care of all your family responsibilities, your social responsibilities, simultaneously you do be a devout person, do nama japa, go to the temple, attend satsanga, do all of that, raise good children, have a good family life. That's why we say the four purusharthas or the objects of human pursuit are dharma, artha, kama and moksha. If you think about it, the logical order would be kama, artha, dharma, moksha. Kama is desire or pleasure. You do something, immediately happiness comes. That is kama. Artha is material wealth and success. So that little more hard work is required. Dharma is doing good to the world. That more hard work is required. And moksha is final liberation. For that, centuries or janmas and janmas of tapas is required. So the logical order would be kama, artha, dharma, moksha. Kama is the lowest. It's the easiest, but it is what will pull you down. Artha is fine, it is okay, but it is not great either. Ideally, we have to aspire for dharma and moksha. But what the rishis did is they put dharma first. They said first you learn dharma. Don't just plunge into the world and satisfy your desires like an animal, because only animals do that. If someone eats too much, or if someone is running crazily behind a particular desire, they'll ask, are you a human being or an animal? Are you behaving like an animal? Right? So don't jump headlong into the pleasures of life like an animal. Don't first pursue karma directly. First come through dharma. Be a moral, ethical human being and you enjoy pleasure. There is nothing wrong. In fact, it is in this Vedic culture that every other week there is a festival. There is no other dharma where there are so many festivals. So this is not some system where the rishis say, no, you have to be very strict, you should never smile, you should not be happy, you should never celebrate. That is not what Sanatana Dharma is. We have more festivals than everybody else. But how is it celebrated, that also matters. It has to be done in a moral, ethical way. Even the celebrations have Bhagavan as the center. Because when Bhagavan is in the center, even that celebration becomes divine and you get to enjoy the pleasure also. You earn money. There is nothing wrong with earning money. In fact, the Smritis say a householder has to earn money. Because the student cannot be expected to earn, the sannyasi cannot be expected to earn, then who will support society? Who will support the student? Who will support the sannyasis? Who will support the retired people? It is the grihastha. These are universal truths. When I say all of this itself, you will realize that this is how life is. In any family, you see, the student is not the one who's earning. The grandparents are not the ones who are earning. It is the middle-aged householders who are earning and supporting the family, whether it is financially or physically, however it is. And once they become retired, by then the children grow up and they support the family. So that stage of life is for working hard. It is for earning money only. There is no question about this. But do it in a dharmic way. That is what is important. So you become dharmic first. Through dharma, as permitted by dharma, you enjoy pleasures, no problem. As permitted by dharma, while being a good person, you earn money, you support your family, be a devout person, very good. Then if you live like this, automatically you will come towards moksha. The fact that you are interested in Vedanta is testimony to a life well lived. If you had not lived a life according to dharma, you would not be sitting here. Because you would simply not be interested in this. The fact that you have gone through life keeping dharma as the internal compass, a lot of what you learn in Vedanta, again and again, if you think about it, these are all universal truths. There is nothing specific about it that only Hindus should do, or this is only for Christians, this is only for Muslims. 90% of what you hear in Vedanta, or 99% of what you hear in Vedanta, these are universal truths. These are universal truths that are required for a good civilization, for a good society, and for you to have peace of mind. But it is slightly tweaked in order to achieve the result. Because if left by ourselves, we will create chaos. A certain system is given. We will pursue pleasure no matter what. No matter who says anything, we will pursue pleasure. No matter who says anything, we will pursue wealth. So what did the rishis do? They didn't stop us completely and say, don't do it. They said, do it, but within these constraints. Don't cross the boundaries of ethics in the pursuit of pleasure and wealth. So where Aryamba Devi is coming from, she is talking about pravritti dharma. She is saying, my dear child, you have to get married because it is the householder who supports the entire society. So it is your duty now to get married, have a family, raise children who are good citizens to this country, who are good followers of this dharma. You have to, if one of the duties of a grihastha is anyone who comes to him asking for something, he has to give. So charity is fundamental to grihastha ashrama. Annadana is fundamental to grihastha ashrama. Any hungry person who comes to your house, you should be willing to feed them. As in Indian culture, anybody comes home, you will not let them leave without eating. Because that is just the fundamental duty of a householder. Anyone who comes to your house, you have to offer them something, at least a glass of water. But if a really hungry person comes, make them sit and give them the entire meal. So only if the householders are doing all of this, then society stays in place. And for 99% of the people, sannyasa is not possible. We have very high ideals, but we also have to be honest about where we are right now. The kind of renunciation, the kind of self-control it takes to become a sannyasi, 99% of us don't have. So what is the general path that is prescribed? The safe path of householder life. Because after you become a sannyasi, there's no coming back. If you're a householder and you're enjoying a little bit of pleasure, nobody will really make an issue out of it, and it won't look odd. But imagine a sannyasi says, I have so many desires, I want to enjoy this pleasure, that is absolutely unacceptable. So it is okay to take sannyasa a little late, but never prematurely. So from this perspective, she says, let us, sannyasa is always there. You get married, have children, follow the pravritti dharma, do all your Vedic karmas correctly, all the actions that have been prescribed by the Vedas, all the actions, all your duties to society, do it diligently, do it with a good heart, do it with the feeling that this is an offering to the Lord. And after your children are settled, then your sannyasa will always be there, and that is the ideal path, that is the systematic route which is prescribed. This is the perspective from which she is speaking. She is not a selfish person who does not want to let go of her son. She is speaking from the perspective of pravritti dharma, because that is the general rule. But in exceptional cases like this, you cannot hold them to constraints. It's like generally, you have to complete so many years of schooling, you have to do so many years of college, but you see prodigies who get a PhD at the age of 13 or 14. So the general rule is that now I can't say that prodigy got a PhD at 14, why is everyone not being given the same opportunity? Because they are just not capable of that. There are very few people who are capable of achieving something like that, but for most people, start from nursery, first standard to 12th standard, then only degree, post-graduation, PhD comes after that. But Acharya obviously doesn't fit into this category. Now, is it enough if it's logical? Generally in the Sampradaya, anything has to be validated by the Vedas. There's another tradition that if in this particular field, when we're talking about the Vedas and Vedanta, anything that you say, you have to have something called Shruti Pramana or Shastra Pramana. Pramana means the proof or the authority. So I can't just say whatever I like here just because you have invited me as the speaker. Anything that I say has to be backed by the Vedas. This is how the commentaries are. If you see Acharya, anytime he makes an important point in the commentary, he will quote a mantra from the Upanishads which conveys this idea and says, based on this mantra from the Upanishads, I am making this interpretation. I am not just pulling it from my imagination. So, what is the Shruti Pramana? Brahmacharyad grihi bhavet, grihi bhutva griham tyaktva vani bhavet, vani bhutva pravrajet. From brahmacharya you become a householder, from householder you go to the forest, from the forest you become a sannyasi. Athava brahmacharyadva grihadva vanadva yadahareva virajet tadahareva pravrajet. Or, that is the general rule that was stated. First you go in this systematic way. Or if you are truly ready, the day you become ready for it, renounce. You can renounce directly from Brahmacharya Ashrama, you can renounce from Grihastha Ashrama, you can renounce from Vanaprastha Ashrama. This is the exceptional case. So Acharya also knows the Shastras. His mother also knows the Shastras. So he is trying to say, I belong to this category. His mother is saying, no, my child, you don't skip steps like this. It's not good for you. You go in the systematic route. But he is saying, no, I want sannyasa right now because I feel I am ready for it. What happens after that, we'll continue tomorrow.